Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and today I want to talk to you about a game called Battle for Biternia. Here's the better picture of the front of the rulebook here. I have a few disclaimers to get out of the way first. As always, number one, all of the stuff that you're going to see here is prototype artwork, graphic design, all of that good stuff. So don't assume that any of the artwork that you see is final. I do know that some of it is, like the gorgeous cover artwork from Fabio Fontes. All of the artwork in this game is from Fabio Fontes, but not all of it's complete yet. Some of the cards have generic placeholder artwork. The graphic design is still being worked on and tweaked. So don't assume that anything is final. That's disclaimer one. Disclaimer two, I was given a copy of this game to playtest and review. So this copy is a Game Crafter edition that I was given for the purposes of this review. We have a funny story that I may get into near the end of it once we get closer to revealing what I think of the game. So, Battle for Biternia is a tabletop MOBA simulator. MOBAs, for those who don't know, are multiplayer online battle arenas. The most famous of these are Defense of the Ancients, or Dota, and League of Legends by Riot Games. The Mechs vs. Minions game that recently came out is a Riot Games property, but it is not a MOBA. This game, however, is, or at least it simulates that in a tabletop format. I'm not somebody who's played a lot of MOBAs, however, most of the people in my group have played a lot of them. Quite a few of them have it as their second hobby behind board gaming. So my group was primed and ready for this the second I told them what it was. So, for those who aren't clear, this is the board in a battle arena. So, you have two teams, red team down here, blue team up here, and each of them has an elemental bit, like this. So this is the red team's elemental bit. This is basically your team's overall life force. It's got this 16 health here. If this gets destroyed, you lose the game. You also have 3 spaces here, which are towers, which look like this, which are where are basically blocking for your bit. So if your enemy is going to go after your bit, like if I'm on the red team and I want to destroy the blue enemy's bit, I have to go through one of their 3 towers at minimum to get there. And then, as you can see, the board is symmetrical, so there's equal lines going through each of these pathways. In the center, there are also 3 spaces with these little coins on it. Those are places where you can get additional resources, which, in this case, gold, which you will use to level up your heroes over time. But you're basically going to be moving your heroes around this map in order to try to destroy your enemy's bit. So, how does this work? Well, you can play this game 2, 3, or 4 player. In a 2-player game, each player will be controlling 4 heroes. In a 3-player game, you'll have to split it up, 1 player controlling 4 heroes and the other players controlling 2 heroes each, and 2 of the players will be on a team. Or you can play full-fledged teams where you have 4 players and each player is controlling 2 heroes on a team. So each player will have one of these, which is a player board. I love the way it looks like a controller, but again, none of this is final artwork. So, each player will have one of these, and then we will draft our heroes. So, let's say I'm going to be the wizard. So this is Carrick, the wizard here, and I would basically place him on this half of my player board, and then the other guy, in this case I'll be the assassin, and we'll go ahead and put the assassin on this half of my player board, like that. And then there are little clips that will tell you what level your character is, 1, 2, 3, or 4. As you level up, you'll gain additional abilities for your hero, including your ultimate ability when you get to 4th level. And then you can track your hit points on this side. So the wizard is not very sturdy. He only has 8 hit points. And as you level up, you'll gain additional hit points as well. You'll gain 1 per level. But this is what each player will have in front of them. And then each player will also have in front of them a set of cards. So in a 2-player game, you'll have a full set of these basic cards, which include strike, parry, defend, and dash. And each one of these will give you some very basic things, like dash lets you move, defend just has a really high defense number in the shield there, parry gives you an attack with a decent defense, strike gives you a strong attack with no defense. And everybody will have these basics. So if you're playing with more than one player on a team, you'll actually split these exactly in half, and each player will take half of them. Then you'll go to one of the characters you picked. So in this case, I'm going to look at the assassin, and the assassin actually has 4 cards available exclusively to them. So the first one here is the ultimate, this Deathstroke, not available until level 4, so we can set that aside. The other 3, however, are available at any level, and I can pick which one I want. So do I want to do Backstab, do I want to Fade Away, or do I want to Garrote? And each one of them has their own special abilities as far as how much damage they deal, whether they deal damage at all. Several of them also give you other text telling you things you do, like Backstab here gives you an attack 4, which is as good as a strike, and on a hit, if the hero has a death mark token, you do attack 4, which must target that hero. So you can get 2 attacks on them if they're death marked. So what's death marked? Well, each hero has its own special ability. So the assassin's special ability is at the end of each action phase, each enemy hero in your space gains a death mark. You get +1 attack against enemies with at least 1 Deathmark token. And as you can see, several of your abilities all level up. For example, your ultimate ability is an attack 3, and on hit, if the target has a Deathmark token, they immediately are defeated, meaning you don't have to chew through all of their hit points. You just have to Deathmark them, and then hit them with this attack, and they die. Sounds a little bit overpowered, but it's not, trust me. We'll get into why in just a second. All of the characters have abilities like this. So, for example, the wizard has Blink and Prism Bolt and Pulse, and then his ultimate, Meteor. Meteor is gross. It is a channeled attack, which means that it'll go off after everything else, and it's an area attack 5. So you make an area attack 5 in each adjacent space. So everywhere on the map that is adjacent to where you're standing will take an area attack 5. Really, really powerful ability. Especially since, as you can see, heroes have like 9 hit points. 5 damage is a lot. So, you know, each character has their own little quirks and their own little abilities, and luckily all of them come with a little reference card that gives you an idea of what their basics are, like a paragraph describing what they do, and then a short summary of each of their abilities. You can give these to your opponent so that they don't have to keep asking you, what does that card do, or what are you capable of? Because in an actual MOBA, all of the characters' abilities are totally public knowledge. There's no secrets. So if you've played a MOBA for any amount of time, you know exactly what any given character is capable of. You may not know what they're capable of at the moment, what attacks are queued up or are ready for use, but you'll know what they can do. And so in this game, it was very important to add that kind of an ability for all the players, so you'll know what your opponents are capable of. And that's important because the way that this game is played is it's actually a simultaneous action selection game. So when you'll have a hand of cards, which will be made up of some of your basic cards and some of your hero cards. And then for each hero that you have, so in this case 2 heroes, remember, you'll lay one of them face down for each hero. And then you'll go in order. So the first team, or the first player, will then trigger one of their heroes. And they'll flip over their card and go, haha, this guy's going to do a strike. He's going to do an attack 4 in his area. this number will be his defense for the remainder of the round. So in this case, he may not want to go early if he has a better attack card or better defense number from a previous round, or maybe it's the first round and he's just going guns blazing and doesn't care that he has defense because he expects to drop whatever he's hitting. All sorts of options there. But each player will then in turn, so once first player has revealed one person doing something, then it'll hop over to the second player, and they'll pick who on their team activates. And then back over to the first player, they'll pick who activates, etc. When you're playing 4-player, it's teams, so one person on the team will go, and then the other team will get a chance to have one of the players on their team go, and back and forth and vice versa. You choose what order your team goes in, no matter what. It's not like a fixed initiative. The only fixed point is that this round we go first, next round you go first, kind of thing. And like one of my other favorite games, BattleCon, the simultaneous selection has a very good aspect to it in that you kind of know what other people can do, but not necessarily, and your deck kind of determines what you're capable of doing, and everybody knows what cards are in it, but they don't know what you have in hand. And so that's basically the way it'll work, is we'll play cards, and then those cards will go to the discard pile. And then we'll play some more cards will go to the discard pile, and then eventually we'll have all of our cards in our discard pile. You never shuffle this. Which means that it acts as the timer for your abilities, the cooldown timer. So when you activate an ability, it'll end up in your discard pile, and then you'll flip it over, and you'll roughly know when you're going to be getting it back. Now, because of that, you have some tactical decisions about what you keep in your hand and what you don't. You're always allowed to discard as many cards as you want on your turn, so if you want to get to something faster, you can just drop a whole bunch of cards, or if you have one specific card that you want to hold on to for a perfect time, you can keep that in your hand and sandbag it, so your opponent doesn't know exactly what's coming up, but the order of your deck never changes. It's never shuffled. It's only changes by you changing it. This comes into play with character death as well. So if my poor little wizard finally takes all 8 of his hit points and dies, I take this card off of my player board and I put it in my discard pile. When this card comes back up, the wizard stands back up and is ready to go again at full capabilities. So if I need him back on the field as quick as possible, I may discard a whole bunch of cards specifically to bring him back. Or if I think we can hold it out for a little while, I may, ease off on discarding cards so that, he'll come back when he comes back, but I have specific things I need my other characters to do now. In a 2-player game, you'll find yourself often, you have 3 characters and all of them have things that they want to do, and maybe you can let that one guy be gone off the field for a little while. In a 4-player game, you'll often find one of the players, if one of their characters goes away, they'll kind of have to choose, do I want to, sandbag what is really good about the character that's still alive, or do I want to, try to get this other character back on the field? And it all depends on the tactical makeup of the battlefield and what you're trying to do. Whether you're currently in resource mining mode and you're trying to level your heroes up, or you're currently in attack mode and you're trying to kill the enemy. There's all sorts of different things that you could be doing in the course of the game. That'll help determine exactly how you want to structure your deck so that when you flip it back over, you have access to the cards that you want when you want them. In addition, you're never forced into playing the card that you play. You can always just gather resources instead, which will give you money. If you're in one of the energy-rich spots, you'll just get additional money, as long as it still remains. All of your movement is done via cards. You do get some free movement, but a lot of the surprise movement comes from cards. Characters like the monk or the assassin or the archer, who you would expect to be mobile, have movement on their personal character cards, whereas some of the other tankier guys don't move as fast. You have the different characters have their different abilities. Like the wizard is very much a glass cannon. He deals out tons of damage but can't take it. The paladin is really sturdy, has the ability to heal themselves and keep standing. All of the different characters kind of do do what you would expect them to do if you're familiar with fantasy games whatsoever, or MOBAs in particular. So, like, you got the archer, who's a master of long-range combat. You've got the barbarian, who just dishes out tons of damage and is a bit beefy. Takes a little while for them to get going, but all of their offense is really, really powerful. The bard, who makes other people better. The cleric, who heals people and can even resurrect people once they get to their ultimate. The duelist, who's really good one-on-one. They're really good at going off on their own and then taking people on in one-on-one combat. The fighter, who's pretty sturdy, has really decent attacks and can do things like force people to attack them instead of the other characters who don't have as many hit points or as much defense. The hunter, who at the beginning of the game gets to declare one of the opponent's forces as their hunted and their favored enemy, and basically they get extra damage and stuff against them. It's really popular when somebody selects the cleric for somebody else to select the hunter to kind of counter that, specifically to take out the healer, which is really rude. The Ice Mage, who has all sorts of area control and statusy type effects. The Monk, who's really hard to pin down, has a lot of movement, and can counter a lot of things. Has the ability to keep people from actually activating their moves and stuff like that. And then the Paladin, like I said, who's a very traditional tank type character. All of the characters are drafted at the beginning of the game, which is another point where these reference cards help. They give you a good idea of what each character does, so when you're drafting, you know exactly what you're going to do. The first team will draft one character, the second team will draft two characters, the first team will draft two more characters, and then the second team gets their final fourth character. In a fairly traditional draft. You can also, for those not familiar with MOBAs, it's possible to say nobody can play this character, and everybody gets kind of vetoes on characters that aren't allowed in that matchup. So you can play that way as well. If you don't like the cleric, then you can keep the cleric from being in, or if you happen to think that the monk is too problematic for going up against your playstyle, you can try to veto the monk. So those are options. It's as I said, I'm not too familiar with MOBAs in general. I'm very familiar with fantasy, and the characters all feel like their class, their stated class. There's no, like, wow, this really didn't feel like an assassin. This felt like something else entirely. Totally feels like what they say they are. The mechanics are very intuitive, and you pick them up really quickly. The cards don't have a lot of detail on them. Like, some of the characters' abilities are a little bit more involved, but there are only 4 of them for each character total, and that's if you get to max level with your characters. I highly encourage that you get to max level. Ultimate attacks are awesome. But you only need to know the 4 on your team in the game. Again, the reference cards also help with both your characters and the opponent's characters, make it a little easier to know what's going on. All of the pixel artwork in these is fantastic. Fabio Fontes, who did all of the artwork in Millennium Blades, is also in full effect here. The characters are all unique, but it's easy to determine that this character is this character's standee. In addition, I think eventually all of these cards are going to have specific, so like the assassin here, all of their cards are already specific artwork for them. The generics have kind of this like generic artwork that could be anybody, and then right now they have a bunch of cards in the game where artwork is still pending, where they have a black and white version of this artwork to denote that, you know, artwork goes here, but we don't have the finished artwork yet. So it's a unfinished prototype graphic design and art-wise. What do I think about the gameplay? This thing sings. This is an awesome game. I have never had as much fun sitting down with 3 of my buddies and then trying to team up to figure out exactly how I can take down another team of guys. It's a skirmish game, like a Summoner Wars or another one of those, but it's very much plays less. It's less mathy. It's a lot more. This is what I'm gonna do. This is what I think they're gonna do. And because of the simultaneous action selection, you have that fog of war element. Like, I don't know if they're going to move. I'm going to assume that they're not, so I'm going to go ahead and target them with a ranged attack where they're standing, or, that character's a melee character, so they're probably going to move closer to me, so I'm just going to wait here and prep an attack, or, they may hang back and just kind of gather resources, so I'm going to go after them, and they aren't going to expect it because I'm going to use my assassin who can actually move twice this round instead of just the normal once. So they won't expect me to come in there and come after them. They'll be busy trying to get resources and won't be paying attention to the knife that slides in between their ribs. Like, there's all of those levels of tactical decisions inside the game. There's strategy. Am I going to try and just go right through the center lane? Am I going to try and gather a whole bunch of resources and level my guys up before I even attempt to take out my opponent's towers? Am I going to try to knock out all the towers or just punch a hole through one of them? Are we going to go through the center, down the side lanes? Where do we think they're going to go? Are we going to divide our forces or just kind of huddle up? Huddling up makes us a really convenient target for area of effect characters like the wizard, but maybe we have the wizard and they don't. So us huddling up means that we can better protect each other or heal each other. Maybe we have a cleric and a paladin together, which is really hard to uproot, and we just plan on putting them in the center of the board and kind of taking control of the center of the board and mining and not letting them get past us to our towers or making them go the long way. All of those are tactical possibilities inside of this game, which means that as a 1v1 game, it is awesome. However, I think it really shines as a 2v2 game. I think playing this with a teammate and discussing your strategies and picking how you're going to play your cards and what you think everybody's going to do is fantastic. It adds a social element on top of the strategic and tactical levels that are in the two-player game that I personally really enjoy. The two-player game is awesome, don't get me wrong. Like, if this game was published, it would have been one of my best games of 2016 when I played it. I really like this game. It just kind of combines a whole bunch of things that I really like, and I'm not even a MOBA player. As I said, the other people in my group love MOBAs and said that this really feels true to it. It's abstracted out. There's not creeps running around the board. The resource gathering is a little bit more simplified in that you either choose to do that or you pitch your card and do that instead of whatever your card said. But it's all there. Like, everything that they want in a MOBA is there. The tactical considerations, the strategic considerations, punching through your opponent's defenses, outguessing them, using the fog of war to your advantage. It's all there inside of this game. And so this is a game that, like, we played it once and then immediately wanted to play it again. And I said I'd tell a funny story, so I brought this with me to BGGCon because I really desperately wanted to play this. And anybody who's been following me on social media for a while probably saw that I lost it at BGGCon. I actually repurchased the game in order to have it because my group loves playing it that much. Was unacceptable for it to be lost. Like, I'd already played it enough to be able to review it and to be able to shoot this video, but I had to have a copy again because we'd already played it and didn't want to wait until after the Kickstarter was complete to play it again. I highly recommend this game. If you at all like tactical games, strategic games, simultaneous action selection, fantasy warfare, if any of that at all sounds appealing to you, I highly recommend this game. It plays pretty quick. You can get set up in really almost no time, especially if you divide the cards in your box appropriately, like separate all the starter cards and have everything bagged and ready. Like, you can get this set up in almost no time and then immediately be drafting your teams. As you get familiar with the teams, I think this game becomes more rewarding. Each of the characters has their own special abilities, but not so many that it's impossible for you to learn them. And the reference cards, as I said before, really help. Like, the reference cards give you a good idea of what a character's capable of, if not the exact numbers. And you can find a character that will suit your play style. If you want a turtle, you can do that. If you want to go on the offensive, you can do that. If you want to be sneaky or buff other people or heal other people or fill whatever role it is that you'd like to fill in a fantasy party, you can do that. So, again, I highly recommend this game. It plays well with 2, 3, and 4. And I really, if you at all like Fabio Fontes's artwork or just pixel art in general, this has some of the best I have ever seen. So yeah, check it out. This is Battle for Biternia. It's from Stone Circle Games and was designed by Chris Falkenberry. Excellent game, guys, and I highly recommend it. Anyway, that's it for me. Bearded Rogue, out.